Today we're going to talk about lesson 6.1 and lesson 6.3. 6.2 we'll do next. So make sure you have your notebook out, ready to take notes and write down examples. So if we look at these squares, we're going to find the area of each square. So to find the area of a square, we do the length times the width. And in this case, because of a square, how it works, we're going to call this a side and this a side because they're the same length. So we do side times side or side squared. So 4 times 4 would give us 16. 6 times 6 would give us 36. 9 times 9 would give us 81. So this would be 6 squared, this would be 4 squared, this would be 9 squared. So the first thing you should put in your notes, if you don't already know, if you are good with it, you don't necessarily have to. But when you multiply a number by itself, you square the number. So here's our first example. A number times itself. So they give 4 squared, which gives us 4 times 4, which equals 16. 5 squared means 5 times 5. That equals 25. This is stuff we should technically already know. So what I want you to put in your notes is what a perfect square is. So this box right up here, you're going to put in a perfect square, a number that is the square of an integer. As you write that, we should definitely be aware of what the first several perfect squares are. So if we go through and write these, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, we go 36, 49, 64, 81, and 100. 11 squared is 121, and 12 squared is 144. Now, this is as far as you should definitely know. The rest of this is just bonus. 13 squared is 169, 14 squared is 196, and 15 squared is 225. Those are extra ones. For sure, you should know the ones through 12 squared without needing a calculator, but anything further than that is just a bonus. So now we're going to go the opposite way, and that's what we're actually going to talk about. If we already know the area, we need to figure out the sides. So if the area is 4, what times itself equals 4? Well, that would be 2 times 2. Same thing here. If the area is 36, what number times itself gives us 36? That would be 6 times 6. Same thing over here. Our area is 81, and that equals what times itself? And that would be 9 times 9. We call that the square root of 81, and that's the next. These are the notes you have to have in your notebook. Whoops, sorry, a couple more. Let's do these first. Square root of 49, what times what equals 49? That would be 7. Square root of 121, what number times itself equals 121? That would be 11. Square root of 324. I have to actually do this one, so forgive me. This is one I don't know. This one is 18. I don't know that one off the top of my head, and it should be 324. Sorry about that. So here's the notes. This is what I definitely want you to have into your notebook, into your notes. To undo this square root of a number, we call this the square root or a radical sign. Okay, the square root of 16 is 4. So I want you to put this in there. Pause the video if you need to, but the next page is also going to go into your notes. I want all of this into your notes. So pause the video and make sure you get it written down. A square root is a number that when multiplied by itself equals the given number. This symbol is a radical. You have to know what that is. And if I put a number under here, that is the radicand. You need to be very familiar with these words. We're going to be using them. Down here, you're going to put this in your notes as well. We have the normal square root. The square root of 16 is 4. But if we have that negative sign in front, then they want the negative square root, which would be -4. And if in front we have both a positive and negative, then they want both the +4 and the -4. You can write it like this, or you can write it out by themselves. It's up to you. Pause the video, make sure you have all these notes, because then we're going to do some practicing. This page just kind of goes over the square roots of perfect squares, the ones that you should definitely know. I told you we should definitely know through 12, so you should definitely know through there. I would count these as ones that would be helpful. The rest of them you can use a calculator for. Okay, so find the 2 square roots of 49. So the square root of 49, and we want both of them, so I want the positive and the negative. What square root of 49? What number times itself equals 49? So I'm going to have 7, and I'm going to have -7. Now, on our calculator, and this is the ones that are in my classroom, the square root symbol is right here above the x squared sign. Okay, so you're going to hit the second button first, and then you're going to hit the x squared button, because that's going to give us the square root. So you're going to do second, and then the x squared button, which is going to be the radical. Then you're going to put in 49 and close the parentheses. You should be able to close the parentheses. When it gives you the square root, it will open the parentheses. You put in 49, close it, and then hit enter. And that should give you 7. That should give you the answer. So let's try another one. I'm going to erase this one. So here we go. You're going to hit the second, and then the x squared button, which is actually the square root sign with an open parentheses. Put in 225. I already know what that is, and hopefully you do too, but close the parentheses, hit enter, you should get 15. Now, if you have questions on how to do this, you need help, come and ask. Otherwise, or if you have a different calculator, make sure you come and ask. So, pause the video and do as many of these as you possibly can. I know the fractions are going to be a little bit different, but we're going to talk about those in a second. Square root of 25. What number times itself equals 25? That's going to give us 5. A negative square root of 196 gives us a -14. Now, square root of 9/16. 9 is a perfect square and 16 is a perfect square. So I'm literally going to do the square root of 9 over the square root of 16. Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 16 is 4. There's our answer. And if there's a fraction inside the radical, if the radicand is a fraction, I want a fraction as an answer. Same thing with letter D. 100 over 49. 100 is a perfect square. 49 is a perfect square. Square root of 100 is 10. Square root of 49 is 7. That's the answer that I want. Now, there's a second way to do fractions. If we look at letter E, 90 is not a perfect square and neither is 10. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide. What's 90 divided by 10? We need the square root. 90 divided by 10 is 9. Now we can do it. The square root of 9 is 3. So you're either going to have perfect squares or you're going to have to divide. Those are the two ways that we're going to do fractions. Let's do these, and this is where you're going to practice using your calculator so that you've got this. Second, the x squared button, put in 2.25, close the parentheses, and hit enter. We get 1 and 5/10. They want both the positive and the negative, so it's positive 1 and 5/10 and negative 1 and 5/10. Okay, let's do letter B. Hit the second button, the x squared button, put in 0.64, close the parentheses, hit enter. You should get 8/10. They want the negative though, so it's negative 8/10. Letter C, here we go, one more time. Hit the second button, the x squared button, put in 0.0049, close the parentheses, hit enter. We should get 0.07 or 7/100. Decimals can be tricky because you got to figure out how many zeros to put in, so be careful. Take a minute and do 1 through 9. See how many you get. When you return, I will have the answers. Find the 2 square roots. So we have 6 and -6, 10 and -10. Whoops, I was already looking ahead. 11 and -11. Number 4, the negative square root of 1 would be -1. 4/25 is both perfect squares, so it would be positive 2/5 and negative 2/5. The square root of 2 and 89/100 is 1 and 7/10. The square root of 169 is 13. We have a perfect square on top, a perfect square on the bottom, so this would be 2/15. And then the negative square root of 3.24 would be a negative 1 and 8/10. Order of operations with square roots. Remember our germ DOS up here? We have grouping symbols, and then we have exponents and radicals. And now we know what radicals are. Those are our square roots. So we do them in order, exponents and radicals in order from left to right. So no grouping symbols. We do have a radical. So what's the square root of 36? That gives us 6. 5 is right in front of it, which means we're going to multiply that. 5 times the square root of 36. So we get 5 times 6. That equals 30 plus 7. Our answer is 37. 1/4, I'm just going to leave, plus, okay, 18 is not a perfect square, neither is 2. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. So the square root of 9 is 3. 1/4 plus 3 is 3 1/4, sorry. Some of these are a little bit easier, some of them are harder, so let's go through and do them all. And again, if you want to try to do them first, go ahead and pause the video and try them. 12 minus 3 times the square root of 25, so that'd be 3 times 5. That equals 15, so 12 minus 15 gives us -3. 28 and 7 are not perfect squares, so 28 divided by 7 equals 4, so the square root of 4 is 2, plus 2 and 4/10 gives us 4 and 4/10. Now we have grouping symbols, so we have to do what's inside the grouping symbols first. Square root of 49 is 7, minus 10, that gives us -3. 5 times -3 gives us a -15. Same thing down here. Remember, when you have a number in front of a radical, you're going to multiply. So 2 times the square root of 36 is 6, plus 9. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 9. That gives us 21. Radical symbols first. So here we're going to do 11 times the square root of 25, the square root of 121. So that's 5/11. 8 minus that. Now we have to be careful. We have to do the multiplication first. So I'm going to put 11 over 1. My 11's cross off. That equals 5. 8 minus 5 is 3. Remember to follow the order of operations. Parentheses first, grouping symbols first. 125 divided by 5 gives us 25. So the square root of 25 is 5 minus 8. That gives us negative 3 times 3. That gives us negative 9. You are going to be doing problems where you have to evaluate the expression by doing the order of operations. Now for the second part, 6.3, and this is 6.3 all by itself. We don't have a B or an A, we just have 6.3, approximating square roots. So right now I want you to put your calculators away. For this one, we're not going to use our calculators, okay? So I want you to think of a number line. And I want you to think of 52 being on the number line. Right now, we're going to ignore the radical. What is the perfect square that's below that number and the perfect square that's above that number? So if you think on, and this number line is not up to code or scale or whatever you want to call it, the perfect square below 52 is 49, and the perfect square above it would be 64. So the square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 64 is 8. So the square root of 52 falls somewhere between 7 and 8. And I'm thinking because 52 is actually a little bit closer to 49, it's not like halfway, I'm thinking it'd be 7 3/10 someplace. And I'm going to guess. I'm estimating it. So now, if I go to my calculator and I put in the square root of 52, I come up with 7 2/10 if I round it. I will give you correct answer if you have, here's our correct answer. If you've got one above it or one below it, I will count that as correct. I was one above it or 1/10 above it, so I'm going to call that good. So let's try the square root of 23. So I'm going to put 23 on my number line. The perfect square below would be 16. The perfect square above would be 25. So the square root of 16 is 4. Square root of 25 is 5. So I know the square root of 23 is somewhere between 4 and 5. Now, 23 is a little bit closer to 25. So I know it's going to be something like 5 and I would say 8/10. It's not 24, so I'm not thinking 4 and 8/10, not 5, 4 and 8/10. So let's go ahead and check. Here's where you can pick up your calculator. Square root of 23 would be 4, and if I rounded it, 4 and 8/10. So because I got it right on the nose, I would count it. I would also give you credit for 4 and 9/10 and 4 and 7/10. Let's do the negative square root of 217. I want you just to ignore the negative for right now until we get to the end. So the square root above it would be 225. The square root below it would be 196. So square root of 196 is 14. Square root of 225 is 15. 217 is closer, but not super close to 225, so I would call it 14 and, I don't know, let's do 7/10. I'm going to guess and do 14 and 7/10. So I'm going to take the square root of 217, and if I do that, that gives me right on the nose, 14 and 7/10. But I need to make sure I remember this negative, so my answer is actually negative 14 and 7/10. And we're guessing. We're making a guess. So do these two on your own. Do not use your calculator. Pause the video and get me what you think the square root of 33 and the square root of 85 is. So the actual square root of 33 is 5 and 7/10. Whoops, let's use a color that we can see decently. I would give you credit for 5 and 6/10, 5 and 7/10, 5 and 8/10. The square root of 85 is 9 and 2/10. So I'd give you credit for 9 and 1/10, 9 and 2/10, and 9 and 3/10. I do not want you using a calculator, especially when we're doing this on a test. So your homework is at the end of the lesson. So right now you're just watching the video, but at the end of the lesson, you have actually 2 homework assignments. The first one is 6.1, and you're doing 7 through 16, 18 through 24, 26 through 28. And you can do it right on your iPad. These are square roots, that kind of stuff. All the rest of your assignments will be on paper, but this is one I'll let you do on your iPad. And then you are also going to do 1 through 9 for the 6.3 homework. All of this is due the next class period. Please make sure you keep up on your homework. If you have questions, let me know.